Let's look at the initial verse. The deeper and more sincere the love, the more earnest the teaching. This is from the teacher's perspective. Then because of the deep love that the Buddha had for all sentient beings, so he wanted to help liberate sentient beings. This is when earnest the teaching. So in the perspective of where we are learning right now, that love comes from master. So the greatest love is serving others without expecting anything in return. So the second line here, I read that to tell us that for us, then when we learn and we get into practice, then we have got need to grow that love within us, to do things without expectation, because one day you would have to teach those who come after you. So protect and motivate the power of gentleness and go among the people for one great cause. And obviously that will then follow through in the work and the practice that you do, that you can grow in your wisdom life. The Master's explanation. It is rare to be born a human and rare to hear the Buddha Dharma. Only by rousing an awakened nature will we have the chance to enter the ocean of wisdom and be able to enter the sutra treasury. So it is rare, and I think all of us understand that. And Master is repeating this quite often. And I was in a discussion with my elder last night, and we were just discussing and say, why do people then commit suicide and want to end life? So it's just a wasted journey, which is so well earned in this life, and just throw that away. So for us to appreciate in this life, then more importantly is we need to understand the purpose of our life and how to make the full use out of it. So only by entering the Sutra treasury do we have the Dharma for transferring ourselves and others by giving. So charitable giving, beneficial conduct, loving speech, and collaborative efforts. These are four embracing virtues. So we give without expectation, and that's how we should be in practice. So the desire to protect and motivate the poor son comes from our hearts. So in the same way as we do that with our children, the power of gentleness, we love them and cherish them, but we do not spoil them. And that's how we should rightfully teach our children. And also that applies to us that come after us, and how we can guide those who then want to seek the understanding. So we must be gentle, but we need to be strict. And this is why you need to be strict, because the discipline that we need to instill. So be disciplined with the four bases of willing power. I'll come to this later on the four bases of willing power and what it means to me. The fourfold mindfulness and four right efforts are used to train and strengthen our wisdom. How much karma have we created for the sake of our body? And this is, what does this fourfold mindfulness means in my practice? What does the four right efforts means in my practice, which I will share with you in my contemplation. And this is what I learned, obviously, earlier. The lessons learned. Spiritual practice is the work of Master. This is what Master says. Spiritual practice is the work of a great person. Okay, and let me read this for the following line first. After focusing on our minds, naturally we will be in contact and understand the Dharma and give rise to the resolve of a great person. What do I mean by resolve of a great person? We must strengthen this great resolve to cut off afflictions. Now, when I read this in a transcript, it resonates that for us to be in this practice, and especially for us, we're just ordinary householders. But what makes you great is the fact that you learn the Dharma and you're practicing the Dharma, and that's what it is. That must make it great. And it must be so when we got 7.7 billion in the world, about 501 million Buddhists, And of a higher over 1 million Buddhas, only a small fraction of that are actually in practice. So if you isolate that out in the perspective of the world, there are very, very few people who are actually deeply in practice. So to do this, we need to correct our faults, and only then we can have the potential to achieve great things. So think about the hearers and the solitary realizers. Hearers listen to the Dharma. Solitary realizer observe the 4 seasons. The 4 seasons, obviously, how the season change, and now he learns from nature. Man can learn wisdom from the external environment. The more we see, the more we understand. So much that Master mentioned about the small and the middle vehicles, and we can also learn how they learn. They are also accomplished practitioners. And what is, for example, what does the global pandemic means to you? I will share with you what it means to me. The global pandemic means it's a sign for us to go on a retreat, to go for a global retreat. But the problem is we can't do that. A lot of the time, someone to do that, and they keep going out. So if we, in a normal ways and normal days, we actually make an effort and pay to go for retreats. But when the world gives you a free retreat, most people doesn't want to do that and still want to go out. So the 4 mindfulness and the 4 right efforts are practices of wisdom. The 4 bases of feeling power are practice of samadhi. If we do not waver in our resolve, we can be earnest and diligent. So this last paragraph, let me share with you in the contemplation. Discipline and commitment to fulfill the vows of practice strictly with the cultivation of the 4 bases of feeling powers. So this is what it means to me. So every morning, like including this morning before I log into this Sinfasya, I will remind myself for the day that how do I fulfill my vows of practice. Obviously, I have my own vows of practice. I'm sure you all do. And you at least you have the 4 bodhisattva vows. So you want to fulfill those vows, and you want to do that quietly in your mind. You've got to uphold these 4 bases of feeling powers. So these 4 bases of feeling powers, number 1 is the power aspiration. It sets a spiritual focus, because your spiritual focus is contained in your 4 bodhisattva vows. Number 2 is a power effort. The power effort, it charges you ceaselessly forward. Why you need a power of effort to fulfill your vow? Because you cannot fulfill in this one lifetime. You got to fulfill over several lifetimes ahead. So you need this power, and that, unless we build a power of this effort in this life, we may forget what's going to be in the next. Then the power of thought brings forth the discerning mind to observe and understand the practice, which is what was said earlier, and how the solitary realizes will observe and learn to understand other things. So same thing, this power of thought and with a discerning mind for us to learn from our own life becomings, that's only uniquely for us. So the power of contemplation. Master refers to contemplation, but I tend to relate that as a power of investigative wisdom. Enables you to grow in wisdom learning and in matters worth investigating. And this is what we encounter in life for every day we encounter, and that's something we need to contemplate on. So seek the gems in the air. So on relationship, this is an entanglement in a relationship. One is easily entangled in a relationship whenever the desire and emotion are aroused. But isn't that the case? Quite often this happen, especially the one closest to you. And all it has is just an arising an emotion, and it will be affected. The closer it is, the more emotional it is. That result in unwholesomeness in your ways, thoughts, result, practice, and self-growth. And because we want to do things our way, that's our desire. As our thoughts, our self-views, our resolve, and here we undertake the precepts, and then we're going to great anger delusion that arises, and how are we undertaking the precepts and applying that in practice of the Dharma, so that we can grow. Because the master can't help us to grow. We have to grow ourselves. So therefore, be mindful of your ways with the efforts of the fourfold mindfulness. So mindful of your ways in the fourfold mindfulness, because unless one is mindful unless I'm mindful of my way, I would not be, how can I then be diligently be in practice? So for me to be diligent in practice in this life, to grow in virtues and wisdom, I have to apply this efforts on the fourfold mindfulness. Mindful of my body, mindful of my feeling, mindful of the focus of the first mindfulness of the body is impermanent, feeling the suffering mind is impermanent, the phenomena is without self. So all these things that apply right through our daily life. And finally, the four right efforts from the arising of thoughts. And this arising of thoughts is because the thoughts can either be wholesome or unwholesome. So whatever is unwholesome, abandon it quickly. Even they arrive before the arising, unwholesome prevent it from arising. Obviously, the wholesome thought, we arouse it and we maintain it in our daily life. Okay, Kanan, brothers and sisters, that's all I have. Thank you.
Kanan, so much, Brother Chin, sharing with us